You were told that if you care more, if you show up more, if you try harder, she will feel it and choose you. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The moment you start trying harder is often the exact moment attraction begins to fade. Not because you did something wrong, not because you weren't good enough, but because something invisible shifted. What feels like love on your side often feels like pressure on her, and the more you push to fix it, the faster you accelerate the loss. In this video, you'll understand why effort backfires, why attraction is not logical, and why the fastest way to lose her is trying to hold on tighter. And once you see this mechanism clearly, you won't be able to unsee it. When men say, "I tried harder," they rarely mean something dramatic. They mean more texting, more availability, more explaining, more reassurance, more emotional effort. They start replying faster. They cancel their own plans. They overthink every word. They try to fix the connection. And on the surface, this looks right, because everywhere else in life, effort works. At school, you study harder. You get better results. At work, you perform more. You get rewarded. Effort equals value. So naturally, when attraction feels unstable, men default to what they know. They invest more, but this is where the trap begins. Because attraction does not operate on a performance model. It doesn't reward effort. It doesn't respond to sacrifice. And it certainly doesn't grow because you try harder to earn it. In fact, the opposite happens. The more effort you pour in, the more your behavior communicates something unspoken, that you're trying to secure her, that you're afraid to lose her, that your emotional state depends on her response. And none of that creates attraction. What you think is commitment is often experienced as pressure. What you think is care is often felt as need. And need is not attractive, even when it's well-intentioned. Attraction doesn't ask, how much effort is he giving? It asks something far more primitive. How grounded is he in himself? And the moment your effort increases because of fear, because of uncertainty, because you're trying to prevent loss, you've already stepped into the effort trap. One of the biggest mistakes men make is assuming attraction works like logic. That if you explain yourself clearly enough, if you prove your intentions, if you show consistency and effort, she will understand and feel safe. But attraction doesn't live in logic. It lives in the subconscious, in emotional signals, in what is felt, not what is explained. This is why you can do everything right and still feel her pulling away, because attraction doesn't respond to arguments. It responds to energy. The moment you start trying harder, your energy changes. You're no longer acting from wholeness. You're acting from outcome, from wanting reassurance, from wanting certainty, from wanting to secure the bond. And psychologically, that shift is immediately felt, not as love, but as need. Here's the paradox most men never see. The more you need attraction to stay, the less attractive you become. Why? Because attraction is drawn to self-containment, to someone who is emotionally complete without needing a response, to someone whose sense of self doesn't rise and fall based on another person's attention. When your mood depends on her replies, when your confidence depends on her interest, when your behavior adjusts to avoid losing her, you are no longer leading the dynamic, you are reacting to it. And attraction does not grow toward reaction. It grows toward presence, toward someone who is steady, grounded, centered in himself. This is why trying to secure attraction destroys it. Because attraction doesn't want to be secured. It wants to be invited. An invitation only works when you are not chasing the answer, Most men never notice the exact moment when attraction starts to slip, because nothing dramatic happens. No argument, no rejection, no clear reason, just small moments that feel harmless at the time. For example, you send a message. She takes longer than usual to reply, so you tell yourself it's nothing, but you still check your phone again and again. When she finally responds, you feel relief. That relief is the shift, or this dash dash. You suggest meeting up. She says, "I'm not sure yet. I'll let you know." Instead of staying neutral, you start accommodating. You clear your schedule. You avoid making other plans. You wait. What feels like flexibility to you feels like emotional availability without tension to her. Another one. You notice her energy feels slightly different. Shorter replies, less enthusiasm. So you lean in. You ask if everything is okay. You reassure her of your intentions. You explain how much you care. And in doing so, you unknowingly remove the last bit of mystery. Your focus is no longer on expressing yourself. It's on managing the connection. And this is where desire quietly collapses, because attraction doesn't fade when a man becomes caring. It fades when he becomes reactive, when his mood rises with her attention and drops with her distance, when his behavior adjusts to prevent loss, when his presence turns into a response instead of a direction. From her perspective, nothing feels wrong, but nothing feels alive anymore either. The tension is gone, the polarity is gone, the sense of movement disappears, and she may not consciously think, "He's trying too hard." She simply feels less pull, less curiosity, less desire, because the moment your center shifts away from yourself and toward her reactions, attraction loses its anchor. When men start chasing, it doesn't feel desperate, it feels responsible. It feels like doing something instead of sitting with uncertainty. For example, her replies slow down. The tone shifts slightly, nothing she can be blamed for, but the discomfort appears, so you act. You send a thoughtful message. You ask how her day was. You try to bring the warmth back, and for a moment, your anxiety eases. That's why chasing feels safe, because it gives you the illusion of control. Another scenario, you sense distance after a great date. Instead of letting the space exist, you follow up quickly. You recap how much you enjoyed it. You suggest the next meeting right away, not because you're excited, but because silence feels dangerous. And in that moment, you're not connecting. You're stabilizing yourself. Or this dash dash, she seems less available, so you become more understanding. You reassure her that there's no pressure. You tell her you're patient. You emphasize how flexible you are. What feels like emotional maturity is actually fear, wearing a calm mask, because chasing isn't about her, it's about relieving your own tension. Uncertainty creates discomfort. Chasing removes it, temporarily, but psychologically, what calms you creates pressure on her. Every extra message, every emotional explanation, every attempt to smooth things over adds weight to the interaction, not weight of connection, weight of expectation. She may not feel overwhelmed. She just feels watched, felt, considered, and attraction does not grow under observation. Here's the truth. Most men resist. Chasing is not love. It's anxiety management. And the more you use her reactions to regulate your emotional state, the more attraction erodes. Because desire needs freedom, and chasing, no matter how gentle, is a form of pressure. When men hear, "do less," They often misunderstand it. They think it means pulling away, becoming cold, ignoring her, playing games, but doing less is not about withholding. It's about not overcompensating. Here's the difference. Scenario 1. She takes longer to reply than usual. The old pattern is tension, phone checking, a follow-up message to keep things alive. Doing less looks different. You notice the delay, and you continue with your day, not as a tactic, not to prove anything, but because your emotional state doesn't depend on her response. Another scenario, she says, "I'm not sure yet, I'll let you know." Chasing waits, chasing stays available. Chasing clears the schedule. Doing less means you say, "All right," and you move on. You make your plans. You live your life. If she reaches out, great. If she doesn't, you're still grounded. Another dash dash. She cancels plans. The chasing response is reassurance, understanding messages, emotional explanations. Doing less sounds like this. "Got it. Let me know when you're free." No subtext, no emotional weight, no hidden request for validation. And here's why this works. Not because it manipulates her, but because it reflects inner stability. You're not withdrawing. You're not punishing. You're simply not leaning. And attraction responds to that, because presence is felt when it isn't trying to be felt. The less you explain, the less you justify, the less you try to manage the dynamic, the more space attraction has to breathe. Doing less is not passive. It's anchored. It's acting from self-trust instead of fear. And that is the kind of energy desire naturally moves toward. When you stop pushing, something subtle begins to happen. Not immediately, not dramatically, but unmistakably. The dynamic shifts. You're no longer chasing responses. You're no longer trying to stabilize the connection. You're no longer acting from fear of loss. And because of that, the pressure disappears. This is usually when men notice something unexpected. She starts reaching out again. Not with grand gestures, just small signals, a message that feels warmer, a question that shows curiosity, an invitation she initiates. For example, you stopped following up after short replies. Days later, she sends, "Hey, how have you been?" Not because you played a tactic, but because space returned. Another dash dash. You didn't reschedule immediately after she cancelled. You simply continued your life. Later, she suggests a new day herself, because attraction needs room to move on its own. When you're no longer centered on her reactions, you become emotionally lighter, and lightness is magnetic. She feels less watched, less managed, less needed. And paradoxically, that's when desire can reappear. Important distinction dash dash. This is not about getting her back. It's about becoming grounded again. Sometimes attraction returns. Sometimes it doesn't. But either way, you are no longer shrinking yourself to keep someone close. And when attraction does come back, it feels different, more natural, more mutual, less forced, because desire doesn't respond to effort. It responds to freedom. Most men believe they lose women because they didn't do enough, didn't say the right thing, didn't show enough effort, didn't fight hard enough. But that's not the truth. The truth is far less comforting. Men don't lose attraction because they care too little. They lose it because they slowly abandon themselves. They trade their center for approval. They replace presence with performance. They stop acting from self-trust and start acting from fear. And attraction feels that immediately, not as judgment, not as blame, but as a loss of polarity. Because desire is not drawn to someone who is trying to be chosen. It's drawn to someone who is already standing in himself. This is why chasing never works in the long run. Not because it's weak, but because it communicates that your sense of value lives outside of you. And attraction cannot anchor itself to someone who is outsourcing his center. Here's the hardest part to accept. Letting go is not what makes you lose her. Losing yourself is. And the paradox is this: the less you try to hold her, the more free she feels to stay. If this felt uncomfortable, that's because it touched something real. Attraction was never about trying harder. It was about staying rooted in yourself. The moment you stop chasing, stop managing, stop proving, you don't become less invested. You become whole again. And from that place, whether she stays or leaves no longer defines you. Because desire doesn't grow from fear of loss. It grows from presence. Ask yourself one final question. Are you acting from wholeness or from fear?